Disclaimer: it is possible that this video will age poorly and that there will not be a Chapter 2 for this game. The creator has stated that the success of Chapter 1 will impact whether or not a Chapter 2 is made. If you are interested in making this happen, I will put a link to Chapter 2's Kickstarter fund in the description. With that being said, enjoy the video. Indigo Park is a new Mascot horror game which has taken the internet by storm. Between its visuals, gameplay, and scares, this game is all the good elements of a bite-sized horror game rolled into one package. I even did a review of the game, which you can check out in the description. But now that Chapter 1 has come and gone, fans have been patiently waiting for news regarding Chapter 2. However, while the devs are busy crowdfunding the next chapter and seeing how much people enjoyed the first, I want to discuss my predictions for Chapter 2 of Indigo Park. I'm going to be covering everything from gameplay to story to characters, so I hope you enjoy. Also, feel free to leave your own predictions in the comments below. With all of that said and done, let's start the predictions. The first prediction I just want to get out of the way is the release date. Indigo Park started production seemingly pretty soon after Garten of Banban Reincarnated, which was developed during spring of 2023. This means that the game had about a 1-year development cycle. If we apply this to Chapter 2, then Chapter 2 should release around spring of 2025, assuming it reaches its Kickstarter goal. However, because Chapter 2 will obviously be bigger than Chapter 1, I would assume that Chapter 2 will release around summer of 2025, assuming that there are no delays. The first actual set of predictions that I want to make is for the characters. I think that this is not only one of the most fun things to predict about games, but I also have some interesting ideas for characters in this chapter. With that said, I think one character that is guaranteed to be in this new chapter is Finley the Sea Serpent. This is pretty obvious to me because at the end of Chapter 1, we enter Oceanic Odyssey, which is said to be Finley's attraction. We can also briefly see Finley at the very end of Chapter 1. So I'd say he's basically guaranteed to be in the game. However, I'm not sure if Finley is going to be the main antagonist or not. While it would make sense since the main antagonist of Chapter 1 was also a member of the core cast, it seems like we're going to be encountering him at the very start of the game, which wouldn't make sense for the overarching villain of the chapter. I do think it's possible that maybe we'll see Finley at the start and end of the chapter. Like maybe we see him at the start and then we think we defeat him, and at the end he comes back for a final encounter, but admittedly that's just a shot in the dark. In terms of side characters, Rambley will obviously return as our guide, but I have an idea for potentially lots of new characters for the second chapter. See, in Chapter 1, we can collect a Rambley the Raccoon mascot head during the final chase. If you show this to Rambley at one of the information kiosks, he'll play a tape of two men talking about how the park is going to be replacing all of its mascot suits with living characters.
Hey Jackson, you hear about the new mascots?
Yeah, think it'll put us out of a job?
I think so. Old sport. And right after we got this damn raccoon costume.
Man, screw this place. I said we get our asses out of here and go straight to Vegas.
Now, assuming that these suits weren't destroyed and were instead just left in the park somewhere, it would make sense that we would see them at some point. And I think that the Rambley head from Chapter 1 was trying to show us that we will be encountering these guys in the next chapter. Now, I'm not exactly sure how these mascots would be able to attack us, but it could either be possession or maybe even Salem the Squirrel's dark magic. Salem seems too important to be just a one-chapter villain, so my guess is they will be more of an overarching villain than a one-game antagonist. The next thing I want to talk about is locations. As I mentioned earlier, we will definitely be heading to Oceanic Odyssey, as we go to it at the end of Chapter 1. I think my only major prediction for this chapter's locations is that we're going to be exploring more of the back areas of the park rather than the attractions, as we seem to have covered most of them in Chapter 1 besides Oceanic Odyssey. We can also see a Ferris wheel and clock tower in the distance during Chapter 1, so it's possible that we will explore those areas as well. My last prediction for locations is that Rambley says that the Critter Cuff can charge payments to hotel rooms, so I wouldn't be surprised if we find ourselves traversing a hotel area or some kind of housing unit, which would be pretty cool in my opinion. Now I want to talk about arguably the most important part of this chapter, the gameplay. I think a good way to start this section is talking about the critter cuff. It's not really this game's gimmick like a lot of other Mascot horror games, but it's obviously an important tool for navigating the park. As of Chapter 1, the only thing our critter cuff can do is open various doors. However, Rambley mentions that it also has the ability to act as a pedometer, heart monitor, and mood ring, as well as revive us from the dead. I could honestly see all of these features being integrated into the gameplay. Maybe if you get jump scared and die, you can use the critter cuff to revive you, though it would obviously have limited uses. Maybe the heart monitor is something that we can control to make enemies less aware of where we are, or maybe the pedometer can show us how far away we are from enemies. My point is that the critter cuff has the potential to be an amazing source of gameplay with its high amount of uses, and I honestly can't wait to see how it is used in the second chapter. Rambley also mentions at the end of Chapter 1 that he wants us to help him restore the park to its former glory, which I think will be the main gameplay of this chapter. Rather than just walking around and exploring, I think we'll instead be trying to clean up around the park and repair all of its broken buildings and attractions. Who knows, maybe instead of killing Finley, we'll just reboot him to be friendly again. I also think that this chapter will have some sort of secret arcade game like Chapter 1, perhaps continuing the storyline of Rambley's friends being corrupted by Salem. The last set of predictions I want to make is for Collectibles. Chapter 1's Collectibles focused mostly on Rambley, which makes sense because he's the main mascot of the game. I think this chapter will focus more on Finley Collectibles, as well as other parts from the mascot suits. We'll also probably get another golden plushie, most likely Finley. Overall, I think Indigo Park Chapter 1 gave us a surprising amount of information as to what the second chapter will be like. As I stated at the start of the video, it's entirely possible that this game will never happen. But Chapter 1 has already seen overwhelming success on YouTube, so I think it's pretty safe to assume that Chapter 2 is happening. I am beyond excited for Chapter 2, and the link for the game's Kickstarter will be in the description so that you can donate to it to make the game possible. With that being said, I'm Supersonic, and I hope you enjoyed. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.